bayan, and President Duterte and I supposed to attend, no, the premiere showing in order to receive Gawad Supremo. But that has to be postponed. Instead, I have sent a video message, and I don't know if President Duterte will be able to attend. No, so there was a definite target for my going to the Philippines, but of course, I give priority to the peace negotiations in Oslo.
Joma, how are the peace panels now? We've been seeing a lot of videos. It seems that the two sides, even if they're coming from the different parties, they get along, and I believe a lot of them have been involved in the peace talks previously.
Well, they're very cordial. They're laughing.
Yeah.
Half of the time, I suppose, and they managed to agree on the serious matter between exchanges of jokes. No, and that's the atmosphere. Anyway, there is the spirit pervading to make the agreements according to the time schedule.
When is the next formal round of talks, and what can we expect after the 6 months when the agreements are finally drafted or the full agreements are presented?
I think the next meeting would be a meeting to draft, to draft the comprehensive agreements, and I suppose after this meeting in Oslo, there is going to be another formal meeting next month or early October.
Joma, if you don't mind, we'll talk about something not directly related to the peace talks, but may have an impact on them. I'm sure you've heard reports that the Philippine military, that some of the rank and file are feeling a little restive, especially with the release of the Tiamzon couple. How do you read?
Well, in any army, the first rule is to obey all orders from the command. And so the commander-in-chief, the president of the Philippines, President Duterte, made the decision. The army, the military, has to follow. And there has been no objection. And legal processes have been followed. While at the same time, the joint agreement on safety and immunity guarantees has been invoked to justify the releases, because indeed the consultants of the NDRP who have been in prison for quite some time have been arrested and detained in violation of the JASIG. So it's very important that the GRP side, the Manila government side, accepts the validity of the JASIG, and in accordance with JASIG, the releases have been made.
Joma, we have a question from Facebook. We've been getting questions from social media. This is not really directly connected to the peace talks, but I think a lot of the people, the young people who are involved in the political discourse right now, especially online, they didn't live through martial law, for example. They weren't able to see how the revolutionary movement prospered at the time. So this is a question from Jojo Castillo. He's asking, is the armed struggle still necessary?
Well, the armed struggle is necessary, has been necessary, because of what President Duterte himself has described as the corrupt character, the rottenness of the system. And, he is not far from the left in saying that the oligarchs have oppressed and exploited the people. And of course, she recognizes that the oligarchs are servile to a foreign power like the U.S. And he himself says that he is the first left president.
Mm-hmm.
And that explains why he has a political will that goes along with the political will of the NDFP in resuming the formal talks in the peace negotiations. He has, it seems that he is determined. And so we can hope for better results and than previously, because the previous administrations were only interested in the capitulation and pacification of the revolutionary forces. President Duterte has expressly declared that he is for justice and he is against the oppression and exploitation suffered by the people. So along this line, the peace negotiations are being conducted, and so the first comprehensive agreement that will be worked out in the time of President Duterte's concerns social and economic reforms to be followed by political and constitutional reforms.
Joma, the revolutionary movement was born in a particular context, and that context was defined by the presidency of Marcos. I know that you've already...
The most brutal form of oppressive government was the fascist dictatorship of Marcos. And instead of this fascist dictatorship succeeding in suppressing the revolutionary movement, it stimulated it. No, it laid the ground. Marcos. We used to call Marcos as the chief transport and supply officer, the chief recruiter of the New People's Army, because of his oppressive rule, extremely oppressive rule. The people rose up, and the New People's Army became strong. But even after Marcos, even when the pseudo-democratic regimes from Cory Aquino to Noynoy Aquino came, really, there was only a masquerade that went on, no? There was the facade of the democracy, but in fact, behind it, are the worms of a rotting system. There is a continuous process of rotting and worsening of the crisis. And naturally, because the people continue to suffer exploitation and oppression, the New People's Army has managed to become strong and a force to be reckoned with. There would be no peace negotiations if in the first place the New People's government has become, has no value whatsoever. But the NPA thrives among the people as an instrument for justice against oppression and exploitation. So you have peace negotiations. In other words, the false democratic regimes that followed the outrightly brutal anti-democratic regime of Marcos were not really democratic, especially in very substantive terms. No, peasants continued to be exploited. The land problem continued to be worse. Land was taken away from them. Excuse me?
No, but it's the same. What you call a pseudo-democratic government that elected, or a system that elected the president that you are now conducting peace negotiations with.
But this is a president that you might call that beat the system too. No, he is a product of the system, but he beat the system with much less money than the other wealthier candidates.
Yeah,
He was
in
able
fact-
to win
Mhm.
by properly adopting the campaign line. He has.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that he's a surefire perfect president. But among the candidates, he was the one who effectively attacked the rotten Aquino regime and the candidate.